Now we are going to the second speaker. Is MARX from Corpus Coranium in Berlin, Germany. He will speak about the use of the term Nasīʿ and the emergence of the Islamic calendar. يعني سيتحدث عن مصطلح النسيء وهو مذكور في القرآن الكريم ونشأة التقويم الإسلامي ارتباطا بهذا المصطلح اللي هو مصطلح النسيء، وسنتعرف جميعا معه عن هذه المداخلة. So, Dr. Marx, the floor is yours.
So there is the famous verse of Surah 9:37, which includes the term Nasīʿ. The term is crucial for our understanding of a calendar, and I have some remarks concerning this term. The term itself was studied, the meaning of the term Nasīʿ was studied extensively by Moberg in 1931. I have little to add here. Moberg is based on Tabari, that means Tabari's tafsir. He studied all the different traditions included in tafsir Tabari about this term. What is the result? Moberg suggests three basic meanings: intercalatory month, intercalation as a mechanism. 3, the person who executes intercalation. If you remember, there is the tradition of the Khalamas, a person outside of Quraysh who comes. So, but again, as Fuchs says in his review of Moberg, also the term postponement could be included. So we have 4 meanings here, and you find them in other tafsir as well. It's possible also that there are other meanings in other tafsir works mentioned. But what is the problem here? The term Nasīʿ is unprecise. Yeah? We don't learn from within the text a lot about it. The origin of the term, or let's say if we go into etymology, into etymology, there might be a relation with the term attested in South Arabian in an inscription described by Deblois and also others. I think Christian Robin has also mentioned this in an article in the 90s. And one can of course wonder now, yes, if the term Nasīʿ is intercalation indeed, is the South Arabian text really including a kind of example here? I mean, there's a considerable gap between the two terms. Anyhow, in Islamic tradition, we find among those who interpret Nasīʿ as intercalation, we find several hypotheses concerning the cycle. Yeah? In Mas'udi, we find 1 intercalatory year, all 3. Haji Khalifa has 7 in 19. That means within 19 years, there are 7 years which receive the intercalatory month, and also Al-Biruni and Maqrizi has 9 years within 24. For those of you who are familiar here, this is the article from Deblois. It's an inscription hundreds of years, 500-600 years before the Quran, and it's difficult here. It's rather the sense of postponement which is included here. What is, however, interesting is that we also have the ḥaģ or ḥaģ mentioned in the same inscription. Why this is problematic? Because intercalation, the term, refers to a full-fledged calendar. Yeah? Intercalation is a term within a calendar system. We have heard the astronomical point of view, to organize time and all the complex astronomical facts behind it. So intercalation is within a calendar system. Intercalations refer to a regular month, to an irregular month of the calendar, something that is added. Postponement, however, would mean we are not necessarily in a strict calendar system, maybe in a rudimentary calendar. And this is one of my arguments, or at least my contributions. I would like to question the fact that all these months in poetry mentioned in the different, in poetry where we have the Hijri terms and also the Arabian calendar, Mubarak, Burak and Mu'tamar and the others, Najir and so on, that this is a true calendar system. I have the impression one should rather use the term rudimentary calendar. I come back to this point. Calendar in the Quran is not really a developed concept. We find at one instance that 1 year is 12 months. There is no evidence for a term. We don't have a term for calendar in the Quran. Words like taqweem, ta'arikh are not attested in the text. In pre-Islamic poetry, what Muqbil has just presented, there is no evidence of a real calendar. There is no evidence of counting of years. The months are not mentioned as calendar months in the strict sense. There is no evidence of any starting point, eras, and so on. However, we find in one occasion in Surah 28, verse 27, we find Thamania Hijajan in the sense of 8 years. Yeah, that means apparently the pilgrimage is a marker of a year. If the reading is correct, Thamania Hijajan would mean not 8 Hijri years, but 8 years. Ramadan is an exception. Ramadan is the only term used for a month later, as I would say it. I believe that this making of the Hijri calendar is later, but still we have the term Ramadan. It's the only term out of the 12 term that appears in the text, and also important, of course, you know all this, there is no counting of years mentioned. Yeah. Shahar and Ramadan, Ramadan is mentioned, so this is perhaps against my argument. On the other hand, Shahar, we read the term Shahar as month of a calendar. That means we read it as we understand it today. We have a taqweem, we have Shahar, and we think it's this term, Shahar. But Shahar means something very basic. It's a lunation. It's a calendar month, so to say, which is indicated by the moon. Yeah? So you can use the term lunation for the same phenomenon without referring to a strict calendar system. So I would suggest for the calendar of Mecca a rudimentary calendar. The pilgrimage seems to be takes place at a certain season. The question is if it's spring or if it's fall. There is no material evidence for this Meccan calendar. Calendars usually are written, and this is an important point. I find this a bit missing in the debate. When we talk, I don't know any calendar which is not written. Yeah? So if we use the term calendar for poetry, for pre-Islamic period, for the period before 632, I find it problematic to refer to the term calendar where we don't have any evidence. There are no evidence for months, no counting of years. And interestingly, the knowledge of intercalation, or if we should say postponement, comes from outside. Let's have a look into research. When did intercalation stop? There are 3 hypotheses: no intercalation at all, ever. Intercalation did stop in 622, as François Deblois says it. Intercalation did stop in 631, 632, Christian Robin. And these 2 theories actually today are, so to say, on the market. I was hoping that François Deblois would also be present among us. His theory is dominating in the Encyclopedia of Islam, for instance. Yeah? François Deblois says end of intercalation is 622. The pilgrimage perhaps is linked to the equinox of fall. Christian Robin has the competing theory. The end of intercalation is in 631. 631 is the last known intercalation. The pilgrimage is in spring. It's linked with the equinox of spring. So we have two competing theories. I will skip this a little bit, but an important argument for the reasoning of Deblois are the names of the months. Yeah, he uses Safar, yellow of autumn, Jumada, frost, frozen season, Ramadan, heat, Rabīʿ, autumn rainfalls. It's not Rabīʿ in the sense of spring, but as Ibn Qutayba puts it, these are the rainfalls in autumn. Wellhausen has already this idea that the pilgrimage is linked to the autumn equinox. And an important point, which was already observed by Sylvestre de Sacy 200 years ago or more, the double names. That means we have names in pairs appearing, and so here this plays a strong role in the argument of François Deblois that Rabīʿ al-ḥaǧǧ al-thani corresponds to Tishri qadim, Tishri al-hay, and Jumada to Qanon qadim, Qanon hray. And this for him fits within the season. That means the Syro-Babylonian calendar seems to have something in common with the Muslim Islamic calendar. This is a strong argument. So what he is doing is he is taking the Hiǧrah of 632, and he goes back until the beginning of the ḥaģġ of 632. He goes back to 622 and uses the Muslim calendar as was done by Muslim historiographers. The end of his argument, he says, it's an astonishing coincidence that this all works well, and that then also for 622, 623, the names are somehow in harmony with the season. Now, this is little astonishing and maybe a bit anachronistic because apparently it's just reapplying, rereading a calendar into the time before. We skip this. The argument of Christian Robin, competing theory, Robin against Deblois. That's where we are now. I have 5 minutes left. Yes, I have my timer here. 5.5. Pilgrimages in March. Sprenger also, not in 1959, in 1859 he observed that pilgrimage, there are arguments for pilgrimage in spring. Intercalation was practiced until 632, 631, and so on. An important paper here is Hashim Ali from 1956, who maybe for the first time described this paradox when you apply the calendar retrospectively. So, let's talk about fixed points for the discussion. For the argument, we have very few fixed points. We have the ḥaģġ of 632, we have the Hiǧrah of the Prophet, where is this fixed point with Yom Kippur, maybe a second one. Out of it results the beginning of the Hiǧrah era. A third fixed point, and maybe the last one, is the papyrus, the first material attestation of the Muslim calendar. I skipped this here. This we have already seen. Here I try to apply just a second, I'm looking for this is the first material attestation of the Muslim calendar, where we have a complete date, not complete with the day, but we have the months, Shahr, Jumada, al-Ula, and the year of the year 22. So, but what is between the two theories? Yeah, just a second. Sorry, I have to look at the time. I skipped the context issue. Between the two theories, it's possible that an event had a date in a lunisolar calendar, and it was converted afterwards into the pure lunar calendar after 632. This is what perhaps in Muslim historiography has happened. That means after 632 in the traditions, they projected retrospectively the pure Hijri or pure lunar calendar backwards. Possibility number two, an event after 622 had a date in a lunar calendar and it was converted into the lunar calendar after 632. An event had no date as a third option in a calendar system and receives a date in a lunar calendar after 632. The problem with the Meccan calendar, as I have briefly mentioned, is there is no material evidence. Okay, you may say so, okay, this is a bad argument because you are using non-attestation as an argument. However, there is no real calendar which has not left any written trace. The evidence of months, in the sense of months of a calendar, is of course difficult to prove. In the poems Muḥammad has presented, I mean, how do we know if these are months of a calendar or if it's just shahr in the sense of a lunation, no counting of years? I mean, it makes somehow sense to believe that the pilgrimage was bound to a certain season. I find in Deblois' argument, I find this a weak point that one should believe that the pilgrimage went across the year. So the hypothesis, and this is all open for the discussion, not now, but also perhaps in the future, if we have a rudimentary calendar, no calendar in the strict sense, not in our sense, a calendar would mean you have a chronological anchor, you have astronomical cycles, you have counting, and it is written. I think this is a very crucial argument. I would like to ask the ethnologists about this. It seems to me a calendar, if you don't have a written attestation, it's problematic to use the term. Interestingly, the knowledge about intercalation comes from outside the tribe of Quraysh. The Ḥaģġ seems to be a seasonal feast. And of course, I think there is a lot of work to do about the mawasim to look for seasonal adjustment. The Islamic calendar was created between 632 and 643. This is what I believe. I think the calendar was created after 632, and perhaps also the system of nouns. And then it was applied retrospectively. As far as I know, and this is a question for Muqbil, sorry, now I'm asking question, this is not my role, but nevertheless, a question for Muqbil would be, do we have attestations of Jumada Athani, Jumada al-ḥawl in Shi'r, Jahili or Muhadrami? I don't know, open question. So, my hypothesis is the names of the months were invented or set together after 632. There are a lot of open questions. A lot of them I have mentioned already, and I don't think that I can find solutions for all these problems. Calendar and poetry, the double names. In Deblois' theory, he argues with the Babylonian calendar. Apparently, there are also double names in the South Arabian inscriptions, as I have learned today. The sources about mawasim could help us. evidence for Rajab, where perhaps we find something for a ritual also in a different tribe. Yeah, and of course, as I have learned, there is another inscription or something about Muḥammad. Marakten has mentioned this today, fals, yeah, the term for intercalation. My time is over. Thank you very much for your patience. Looking forward.
Thank you, Dr. Marx.